Getting over to basketball, Indiana now turns their sights back towards the Big Ten. I keep wanting to say get into Big Ten play, and I know we have had those 2 games. I'm like, all right, they count on the record, but they don't count. We're into Big Ten play now because it just drives me nuts, the in and out. But getting back to Big Ten play, Indiana going on the road to where used to be what you would call, put that in the win column, but as Lee, our good friend Lee Corso would say, not so fast, my friend. That is no longer just the automatic W there out in Lincoln.
Well, there's no doubt about that. And even though Ohio State was not very good at all last year, both these teams that Indiana is going to play this week are 11-2 on the season. And they're both much improved over 1 year ago. The game on the road against Nebraska on Wednesday night may be the first time that we have seen Xavier Johnson back in over a month or right at a month. Xavier hasn't played since the Harvard ball game. He missed 7 straight ball games. Hopefully he's not as rusty as you might think he would be coming off of that kind of a layoff because of the injury to his foot. And hopefully he's 100% and can play. I believe that will be the case if, in fact, he hasn't done something in practices leading up to the Nebraska ball game. So right now we're expecting that we'll see Xavier Johnson back out there and Khalil Ware as well, because Khalil, of course, was ill for the game against Kennesaw State. Might have been a big difference maker in that Kennesaw State game because of that size that he has at 7 foot. But nevertheless, the good news is that Indiana will likely have a full roster of players available to them on Wednesday night.
And they'll need it because you get into Big Ten play, especially on the road. Like I said, Nebraska, this is not your grandpa's Nebraska team. While they're not going to challenge Purdue to win the Big Ten title, they're also not some place that you can just waltz in and walk out with a guaranteed win anymore. You're going to have to play hard, play to win, and play smart. You can't foul out. You can't do things. You can't turn the ball over 18 times. Indiana is going to have to do all the things they need to do to win, and that probably includes hitting the 3 ball a little bit. They've been training that, so that's not something I expect to continue at that level. But man, if they can just maintain a modicum of what they've been doing there, the production they've been getting, it makes a huge difference.
Oh, there's no question. They've shot they shot 50% in one game and like 47+% in the second ball game or in the last 2 ball games that they played now. And they're taking more threes, which I think is critical for this ball club. Because if you show teams that you can make the 3 as well as shoot the 3, they've got to come out and guard you. It opens up the inside game. And take a look what Malik Renew did in the ball game the other night, scoring 34 points and of course had a double-double with the 11 rebounds as well. But Malik has just taken on a whole new aura of his game here in the last couple of weeks with being able to shoot the 3-point shot, because he was 1 for 3 in this ball game from the 3-point line. So the ability to shoot the 3 is really, really good. Now, the ability to stop guys from shooting the 3 is something you can argue about, because Kennesaw State hit they hit 50% of their threes in that ball game.
Like 9 of 21, I think they shot
threes.
there.
17 threes they made.
Wow. I mean, I know that some teams get hot, but this is not a one-off. And while I don't know, other than there are a few teams in the Big Ten that are probably going to be able to do that, that's just I don't know what it is with this defense that allows the openings. I talk about this with Todd all the time because I'm not the guy, but I just think that they're getting caught up in switching too much sometimes, and they over rotate and leaving guys wide open, which they're feeding right into what these guys want them to do.
Yeah, but then you think about what the players were talking about, what the coaches adjusted to in that ball game against Kennesaw State, and it was because of the switching and the zone defense that they put up that they changed that scenario and finally got some stops because of it. So I don't know what the answer is. I'm not an X and O guy either by any stretch of the imagination, and have never been. All I know is this. I don't think Indiana has played as well defensively this year on a consistent basis as we've seen over the last 2 seasons. And I think that's where Indiana really has to make improvement.
Yeah, absolutely. And not having Kalel Ware, of course, a huge difference in that last game. No
Sure.
question about that. But getting him back, he's somebody that's going to be tough for Nebraska to handle, because I don't know that they played anyone quite like him yet this year. If they haven't played Purdue. So it's going to, but Mackenzie Mbako, I mean, not Mackenzie Mbako, well, Mackenzie Mbako, his shooting has really come along, but then he kind of disappeared. Not necessarily he disappeared, but his production was mitigated throughout the game after a great start out in that last ball game.
It was mitigated because he wasn't on the floor. I mean, he only played 14 minutes in that ball game. We're right at it. In fact, I got to look at it real quick here. Mackenzie played 13 minutes and 55 seconds in that game. Why? Well, probably because defensively he wasn't getting the job done. And that was probably what had Mike Woodson upset about and why he wasn't putting him out there on a consistent basis. I mean, he started the second half, but he wasn't in there very long before he was pulled out. When you think about Mbako, he scores 14 points in like the first 8 minutes of the ball game. I mean, he was on fire. And then
best start he's had this season.
Right. And then the next thing you know, he's on the bench. So there are things that he's not doing that is keeping him from being on the floor a lot more, with a lot more minutes of playing time. And obviously that's a negative, but at the same time, you know that he is starting to become a major factor from a scoring perspective. I think he's got, 5 games in a row now he scored in double figures. So he is definitely an offensive factor for this basketball team that they need, and they need him to be more consistent at the defensive end to give him more minutes and more opportunities.
You absolutely need him to always be a part of it, because he makes it look so effortless. That start that he got off to, it helped propel Indiana to a great start. They hit their first 5 3-pointers in that game.
Right. So it's look, right now, this is a basketball team that still, I don't think, is where it needs to be. At the same time, they have found them. This is the one thing that intrigues me about them. They find ways to win ball games, especially these tight ball games. And yeah, they've done it against mid-majors, that kind of thing. They found ways to win against those type of ball clubs, but they also found a way to win a ball game on the road against Michigan, and played very well in that contest, especially down at the wire. So this team has proven to me that they can be a resilient ball club, and they can get it done when it looks like it's bleak out there. But it's also a ball club that's proved that they're not as consistent defensively as we need them to be. And as far as Khalil Ware is concerned, I think Khalil Ware, in his previous 2 games before the Kennesaw State game, in which he did not play in, where he was ill, those 2 games before kind of concerned me, because he was not getting it done, not only from a scoring perspective, but from a rebounding perspective. So I mean, right now I'm not shaky, but I'm not feeling great about what I've seen from this ball club, in the sense of competing at the highest level against some of the best teams in the country. And we're talking about the Big Ten now. And when I say that, I'm talking about the Big Ten as a whole. You've got to give this league credit for being one of the best leagues, one of the best Power 5 conferences in the country from top to bottom. And a lot of the teams in this league this year, Jim, I think, are playing the same way. They're not as consistent as you would think that they might be, because they're still working with new faces, new pieces to the puzzle, so to speak, for their respective programs. And I think there are a lot of teams right now. The team that finally finds itself on a consistent basis, with the exception of Purdue, with the exception of the Boilermakers, I think that's the one team you can count on being really good all season long. Everybody else has had the same issue, where they'll play a great couple, 2 or 3 ball games, and then they'll come back out and lay an egg. And right now, I think that's the biggest question mark about this Indiana basketball team.